question for you. I'm curious because, like, we're all part of the human community. You and I are part of the Phoenix Valley
Yeah.
community. I'm in Mesa. I think you're in Phoenix itself.
Yes.
So those are their own communities. We all have our own family communities and cultures. So I'm curious about, because you are a member of the Spanish-speaking community, and the culture that comes along with that in your personal upbringing and development. I'm curious about how positive discipline aligns with your own cultural experience in the Spanish speaking community.
Yeah. So I mean, Spanish speaking community, very broad, right? But I'm come from a Mexican family. I'm Mexican, and one of the important things that with any community, but for Mexican is its culture, rich in culture and your traditions. It's engraved, and I think what happens to what goes through our mind is like, well, we've been doing this for all these years, generation after generation. This is how we've done the parenting thing. um but it's just when you reach that place of like, I actually don't want to parent how I've seen or I've been around or I was raised. But you don't know where to start or where to go. This is a great opportunity because it is for any one parent, regardless of your community. But being that all the material is in Spanish and it's available to us, it's great. It's a great benefit, to be able to attend a workshop that will be in your language, that the material is already in Spanish. Um, but with regards to culture and tradition, I mean, it's relearning. That's where the growth is because it's so engraved in us that, well, this is how it was done. And I know we joke a lot.
Huh?
Well, that's, how I was raised. And we always talk about the chancla or, we always talk about things the ways that we were raised. But yeah, you come to a point whenever you're like, maybe that wasn't the most effective way of raising someone or teaching, boundaries or being that kind and firm that you mentioned. You could be kind and firm. But I appreciate the fact that, and that is why I picked up these in Spanish, because they are available. They were available at that time, and they still are. In my case, my daughter's first language is Spanish, and so that helped also. Again, when we talk about building bridges to keep that connection,
Mm.
and have that, available to me to not another part of not losing, our the richness of our culture, but enhancing it and with
Oh,
these
yeah.
tools. Yeah,
Yeah. So not invalidating or shutting it off, enhancing the
enhancing.
experience of what is already a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I appreciate you say that word enhancement. It's such an
Hmm.
important aspect of what we can do here. And positive discipline was founded in the research of Dr. Alfred Adler, who was a psychiatrist way back in the early 20th century when when psychology was a very new field. And so, whereas another field of psychology, which tends to be predominant in our broad American culture, is the idea of behaviorism and the idea that the primary motivation for human behavior is to seek reward or avoid punishment. And Adler didn't see it that way. He said it goes way deeper than that. Our behavior is actually an indicator of our need for belonging and
Hmm.
significance.
Hmm.
And so when we feel like we belong to the group, I love you no matter what is the message from parents. You belong in our family no matter what. When you feel like you belong to the group, and the other piece of that is that you are significant to the group, you have
Hmm.
something to contribute,
Hmm.
your contribution is valued. Then when I feel like I belong and I'm valued and I have a contribution that other people appreciate, then I tend to use behavior that Adler would call socially useful behavior. It's useful to me in my big picture, and it's useful to the family group. And family doesn't has to have to be with our immediate family in the home, but then we have extended family, and then outside the home, the neighborhood community, and then the broader community. So what's good for me and what's good for the group? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this idea is a big word that Adler used called Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which means community interest. And so helping our children learn not just to act in their own best interests, but in the best interests of the group, the family, the
Mm-hmm.
community, is a broader perspective to raise our children in. And so helping them feel that belonging and significance, so they feel the unconditional love, and they also know they need to make a contribution. So the chores, the expectations, the things they can do to help make our family run more effectively, that's very necessary. You are needed here. And
Mm-hmm.
so when they see how much they are needed, they are more likely to act in ways that would be socially useful. So we're
Mm-hmm.
always looking for um, what about their negative behavior is speaking to a need for belonging or significance that's not being met somehow? And again, we can
Mm-hmm.
get curious about that and help say, oh, here's how I need to bring you in, and here's how I need you to act differently, because it's not just in your best interest, it's in the best interest of our family. And so really standing, I think family is a strong value for most cultures, and when we can stand strong in what's good for the family and help our children sense that, then we help them see their contribution. And that extends out into the school, the classroom, the general community. Does that make sense?
It does. And again, when we talk about, you know, strengthening families, having these richer connections, it just it's a tool, right? It's something that can help us. It can come help us. Super important to remember that we don't have to do this alone. This parenting thing, we don't have to do this alone. And there is a big group, right? I mean, a big group of those of us that have um, gone through the parenting, positive discipline parenting workshop, or the workshop for educators, positive discipline in the classroom. So there is a community. There is already a community, and we don't have to do this alone, and we won't be doing this alone. So that is important too, to know that there is going to be support. I think that's one of the things that when it comes to frustrations, for many of us parents, it's if you feel like you're doing this alone and you're trying to figure it out all by yourself, but it's important to share that you don't have to do this
Yeah.
alone and that there's a big community. So
It takes a village,
it
and
does.
we need each other in our village, because this work is too hard and too important to try to say I have to do all of myself and I have to have all the answers, because like you said, kids don't come with a rule book. Um, and positive discipline doesn't come with all the answers for every single problem, because there is no such thing. But it gives us foundational tools to stand on and say, okay, if I want to handle this with kindness and firmness, with compassion and empathy, and with an understanding of what's happening for my child, so that I whatever I do with a sense of connection. If I can do all those things, then what does correction look like? Keeping
Hmm.
all those things in mind. So it gives us
Hmm.
a foundation on which to stand and say, okay, in this situation, I think kindness and firmness looks like this. I think it sounds like that. And then we kind of go forward from there. And mistakes are opportunities to learn. We're probably not going to make a perfect decision every time.
Every
I don't
time.
know anybody who can, but we can recover from those mistakes, and our children can watch us modeling how to manage those moments.